we're going to ask all of our guests this at the end. How would you like to die? Less than a minute left. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Charlie Cantrell, and we're really excited to get this thing started. Our podcast focuses on a person's life up to now. We see where they began, what they've done, and where they'd like to go, and also how they'd like to go. Joining me is my co-host, Jamie McCacken. How are you, Jamie?
Hi, Charlie. Good to be here. How are you?
Good. And for this episode, we've got a great guest. They are a clinical professor at NYU Stern School of Business, and they are the author of the book Higher Ground. And we met doing Improv 101 together at Upright Citizens Brigade. Please welcome Alison Taylor. Thank you for being here.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
And our first question is, we know you're a clinical professor. What is a clinical professor?
Right, it sounds medical. It totally sounds medical, and it isn't. It is just the same thing as saying a professor of practice, I guess. So like I'm a full-time professor. It's my full-time job. I teach 5 classes a year, but I'm not an academic. I was a consultant and I worked in a nonprofit and I did a million things until about 6 years ago. And then I joined NYU, the business school of NYU, first to kind of run a think tank. And then now I'm a full-time teacher, basically.
What brought you from the think tank to the professor route?
I guess running the think tank was quite hard, and I started teaching as an adjunct. So that's a kind of teaching where you have a full-time job and you do it in the evenings or on the side, which I'd been doing before as well. And I don't know, I just got to middle age, I guess, and discovered I liked teaching. An important context here is that my mother was a teacher. My grandparents, both my cousins, my brother is a teacher, my stepmother was a teacher, flipping surrounded by teachers the entire time I was growing up. And my mom, they didn't make it look super fun, super well paid. And I was like, well, I'm definitely not doing that. So I went and did other things, but then I guess your genes catch up with you, right? I mean, at some point I was like, well, that looks fun and that seems fun, and I guess I want to do that. So I don't know what the lesson here is for your listeners, but maybe you can run, but you can't hide.
Is the phrase ethical business, is it an oxymoron? Can you have ethical business practices, and what would that look like? What are your thoughts on that?
It is a question a lot of people ask me. In fact, when you say you work on business ethics, people are like, well, they need all the help they can get, you know? So I think it's a good question. I don't think it's impossible. I think there are a lot of things that make it difficult. There is a sort of, in America, well, let's talk about America. There's an obsession with shareholder value. There's a lot of short-term thinking. There's not accountability in some key areas. There's a lot of companies making money, either by making us addicted to sugar or alcohol or social media. There's private prisons. There's a lot of gambling stuff going down right now. The poly market, the only people making money are like 0.1% of people. So, there's some problems out there, let's be honest. But I think the questions are interesting, and I genuinely think a lot of them are strategic questions. It's a good way to look at how the world's changing. I certainly like spending time with students and what they think about and ask about. That I learn a lot from that. So I guess I think it's an interesting topic rather than I'm on a big crusade about it, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, something to piece apart and look at, from an academic perspective, not necessarily, you said, academic and then practicing as well with the think tank.
Yeah, I used to be a consultant. Like I try to change the world. There's a lot of angles to all these questions as well. So it's a knotty, complicated topic that's kind of not what it looks like when you first look at it. And I think that's an interesting thing. And I think the other thing, since this is a podcast about careers, like I've changed direction a lot of times. I've moved to completely different new areas. And I think that's quite good when you get older because you can start to join the dots between things that if you stay in one place, it's harder. Um, so that hasn't been particularly good financially, like changing careers all the time and hasn't been the most well thought out thing. But it's ended up being very interesting and fun.
Was the move to America a part of a career change, or was that because you love America so much?
Oh, I went to grad school in Chicago in the late 90s. So I lived in Chicago and a little bit in San Francisco the last year, and then I went back to London. At that time, I was working as an investigator. So I was investigating like fraud and corruption and doing due diligence on countries. And my area was the Middle East and Africa. So I was flying around and going to Nigeria and Kenya and Cape Town and having a very good time. But I stopped having a very good time doing that job for various reasons. I quit. I went to work for an NGO, and then the same company, the investigations company, hired me back and offered me a move to New York. And so I came for that job originally. That was 15 years ago. And now I'm a citizen and I've changed careers 3 times since, and I've got married and I got divorced and I bought a house, and a million things happened in that 15 years, including like the pandemic and Trump and all sorts of things. So it's been, but I like America, or at least I like New York. I like America. Yeah. It's got its issues, obviously.
I'm curious, you said you started as an investigator looking into fraud and corruption. Was that from like into businesses that were committing stuff like that?
Yeah. So I get kind of, look at this businessman, a bank wants to do a big deal with a businessman. Can they do business with him? So you'd like root around what's his background, what's his reputation, who does he know? Is he politically connected? You'd run sources like a journalist. So I'd go, like if I went to Lagos, like I wouldn't be asking questions myself, but I'd go and sit and talk to my sources, and it's exactly as fun as it sounds. It was super, super fun. I'm a very nosy person. Like I want to know what's going on. You really get to know a lot about a place from understanding its relationships. There's a lot in here about, and this is a big topic in America right now as well, of course, like the relationship between business and politics, who knows who, like you have to understand how the media works and how the legal system works. Like it's interesting, and you have a lot of adventures and get to go to a lot of crazy places. So yeah, that's what I did for my 30s, mostly for my 30s. I got that job when I was 29. And I did it till my early 40s, apart from this little stint where I left and got hired back. Yeah.
Sounds like an adventure.
It was, yeah, many adventures.
We were also curious about, what it's like interacting with, high level CEOs and CFOs. If that's a group of people that you were, researching and interacting with, in your previous career, and then think tank and all your work that you've done over your career, is there a certain type of person who goes on to enter that level of, a major company? What is their personality like?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And one I'm not usually asked. I mean, if a CEO of a big company is typically gonna have pretty good social skills. They'll be quite charming, they'll be good looking, they'll be relatively extrovert, they'll make decisions. A lot of them don't like being challenged, or told they're wrong, and never will. I think it's kind of taboo to admit you don't know stuff from a lot of them, not all of them. It's hard to generalize, right? But there's a certain expectation. Um, I think there's a thing about the role, and you can say the same thing about politicians who have a lot there's a thing about the role, especially if you're a CEO, where you get isolated and no one will give you bad news and everyone sucks up to you. And there's a culture in a lot of companies as well to kind of kiss up and kick down. And so I think it's genuinely hard to get bad news, and to know if you can. I mean, I think there's just a lot kind of in there, that's really hard. And then I think you're kind of on stage all the time. So people are looking at how you act to figure out how they should act. And I think that's kind of exhausting. So I think, I mean, I think they're overpaid, don't get me wrong, but I think it's kind of hard work and lonely.
That's really interesting. Yeah, it's a different perspective.
Well, power is numbing of insight, right? I think this is a broader comment you could make. Like if you're in a low power situation, you have to be much more alert to what everyone around you is doing. And if you're in a high power situation, you can just sit and spout off and be like, blah, 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 I think this. And like, you can be like, my door's always open, come and see me, but no one believes you, right? They're going to
Yeah.
say what they think you want to hear. And so I think, I mean, you can see, and whether it's like Hollywood stars or all these big tech CEOs, I mean, their mental health is appalling. They're isolated in their big compounds in Hawaii. They don't ride the subway. They don't fly in the airport. They fly private. They don't meet poor people, apart from people that are bringing them things. Like, they don't see it. I mean, I feel sort of sorry for them. Like they're not experiencing the friction and inconvenience and joy of the variety of the world in some fundamental way. Anyway, yeah, this conversation's going in
Yeah.
an interesting direction. But yeah, I think you can see. I mean, I'm sure many of them are very happy, but that kind of isolated narcissism, I think, is a bad look.
Definitely. Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting. I'll be thinking about that next time I see a big CEO talk.
Yeah.
I'll be empathy for them. Can good people be really successful in business? Can you be a good person and be truly, really successful as a business person?
Yeah, absolutely. I can think of a load of examples. I think you have to have a culture that rewards that. I think the best CEOs have a lot of humility and self-awareness. I think it helps. And like the CEO of Walmart would be a good example. Like, I think it's really helpful if you worked on the shop floor and kind of were at the front line of this business at some point. There's actually interesting data showing that those people are better leaders. I think you got to work at it. I think there's a lot of forces, not least what we were just talking about, weighing against. And it's kind of hard to tell. Do only get the job, or does the job turn you into an like, it's kind of an interesting question.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, I guess maybe people who are really successful and also remain good people are experiencing some more of that friction that you were talking about in the last bit.
Yeah, I would say you're going out and looking for it. A self-aware enough to understand what power does and to go out and look for friction and to be proximate to things and to ask questions. Because I think every other force is like weighing against you doing that.
We listened to one of your podcasts and we really liked it. It was about de-siloing.
Yeah.
If you could talk, and I think we understand what de-siloing is, but if you could maybe talk a little bit about what that is.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, let me start somewhere a little offbeat, but we'll get there. So in the classroom, and I noticed this particularly with the undergrads, but also with the MBAs. Like, I think there's something generational in here that everyone hates hypocrisy. There's like this whole thing about authenticity. I hear the word performative all the time. Like, that's just performative and they don't really mean it. And it's just PR bullshit. And why can't people be authentic, or companies be authentic and tell the truth and that kind of thing? And so they're right, there are a million examples, which are, we don't even need to work through, of companies saying one thing and doing another. There was a big, we care about diversity and climate change thing a few years ago. now everyone seems to have changed their mind. Like, so there's a there. Like, this is a big issue. The point I would make is, like, in a company's not a person with a single brain, right? It's a system. So in a company, you'll have the head of communications being like, how can I spin this well? And you'll have the head of sustainability writing a report, and you'll have the head of legal trying not to get sued, and you'll have the head of government relations who's hanging around in Washington, D.C. trying to get bills through. And everyone's doing their job, and it adds up to a total mess where, like, you're saying you care about climate change, and then the government relations guys lobbying against doing anything about climate change. And I think this kind of worked for a long time because there wasn't the level of transparency, there wasn't social media, there was a different generation, people didn't know. And now it's much more like everything's leaking. Another thing your generation does is like leak information like crazy. So there's a lot more visibility, I think, of these kind of misalignments. And so, you know, maybe that's the less interesting part of this. So a lot of the work I do is about trying to kind of help companies not look like such hypocrites.
And you were talking about social media for leaking. Do you see hope in social media, like power to the people?
God, well, like, so when social media first came out in like 2012, everyone thought it would save democracy. And there was so when I was young, the whole conversation was about, like, you know, the elites control the media, like all the old white men control the media, and you can't find out what's going on and whose voice is allowed and blah, 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 blah. And so when social media or the internet and social media came along, everyone was like, well, now we're going to have democracy and the people will shape things and everyone will have a voice and it'll be amazing. And so there was this like phase of optimism. But it turns out people are pretty weird, and a lot of people are really weird. And then the business model, back to ethical business, right? The business model of social media prioritizes lunatics and prioritizes anger and prioritizes addiction. So and then there's the kind of whole tech monopoly situation. So the whole thing has got a lot more complicated in the last decade, but there was a phase of saying it would be great. And I still think, like, there's a whole conversation going on right now, right, about social media being addictive. And there's this lawsuit that's being compared to big tobacco in the 80s. And, you know, I get it. I got a lot of sympathy for that. But, like, suppose, you know, if you're my age, right, and you're a teenager in the 80s, suppose you're gay. I don't know. It's not easy to talk about that. You might not find other people that feel the way you feel. You're possibly gonna feel really isolated. Like, it's also true that the bullies are only going to be able to get you during school time rather than harass you 24/7. You know, it's true that, you know, it's not like, I mean, everyone, well, you don't, Charlie, but Jamie remembers what it's like to be a 12-year-old girl. Like, you know, you still have that feeling of like, you know, everyone's prettier and cooler than me, but at least you can kind of turn it off when you go home versus seeing it all the time. So there's stuff I think about connecting and finding your community that's really empowering, that's really different. Like, I think it's very hard for me to understand. But there were also things I had that were a form of freedom that doesn't exist anymore. Like, I went to India. So, right, you know, I was 22. I went to India for 9 months with like a backpack. I spent $3,000 the entire 9 months. Like, didn't touch hot water. I called my parents from a phone box every 6 weeks. No one knew where I was or what I was doing or who I was with for months at a time. And that's impossible now. It's pretty much impossible. I mean, you could do it deliberately, but you'd have to really work at it.
I'm not sure, but I think my parents can track me through my phone. Like, I think that you could see it.
Exactly.
Like, I think Find My iPhone, I can also just like zoom in and see where my dad is at this second.
Exactly. So that shows up in a million ways, and it just transforms, I think, how you see the world, you know?
Yeah, I had a relative who had a secret family, and then it was years ago. But nowadays with social media, we would just find that out instantly. You can't. you can't hide that. You can't say, "Oh, I'm going to a golf trip." Like you would just see, who tagged him in these posts. It just
You
instantly
get
go
people
away.
you may know on Instagram.
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
you
yeah. It'd
find
be
the
like
other
mutual. Like,
way.
oh yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
One thing I'm curious, hearing you talk about all of this, I'm curious about throughout your career, what has analyzing business and looking at it through this lens and this perspective taught you about human nature, about the humans creating the business and interacting with it and participating in
Oh
it.
God. There's a very fine line between being a brilliant entrepreneur and a hopeless lying bull. I think a lot of the time you're trying to create and execute a vision. I think companies don't do things, people do things. Like at the end of the day, people are very keen to impress. People are sort of conformist. People will go along with things. Power is very important. Um, Having an ethical compass and making good decisions is more about how you set up the organizational system than being a good or bad person per se. Like everyone thinks they're more ethical than average, like everyone thinks they're a more better than average driver. It's kind of like that. I think groups are really powerful. Like the influence of people around you is a really, really powerful thing, and there's a lot of interesting stuff that falls out of that. Um, Gosh, I don't know. Patterns seem to repeat themselves in a way that I find somewhat depressing. But at the same time, the world has really, really, really changed, has really changed, and will continue to change. And some of those things are terrible, and some of them are great. Yeah, those are just some things off the top of my head.
Yeah, no, that's a wealth of perspective. And I'll be thinking about those things.
Would you say that the way the world has worked, is it a fair statement to say the mega rich is screwing everyone over, or is that too harsh on
No,
the
I
mega?
think that's fair. I think the mega rich is definitely screwing everyone over. I think the more complicated thing is that a lot of the middle class are helping them and saying it's not us and we're not the 0.1% and we're great. And I think there's plenty of stuff going on there that's a real problem as well. But yeah, the billionaires are screwing everyone, and they hope that democracy will end and they'll all live in their compounds and we'll all be desperate serfs, clinging to our universal basic income. And it'll be like the Hunger Games. I think that's what they hope. Yes.
Any names in particular?
Well, all of them.
Sure.
I mean, I think some are marginally better than others, but I have a short list, yes.
Yeah. Hopefully Elon doesn't see this, but yeah.
I'm sure he'd be very annoyed. Yes.
We watched your TED Talk interview
Yeah.
with Bill Ackerman, and we really enjoyed it. We were wondering about that point in your career. How did that feel like? What was your experience? And then also we were watching it and we noticed he was wearing a quarter zip, which is like an epidemic in the finance bro world. We were just wondering your thoughts on the whole experience.
Oh my God. There were a lot of guardrails around what I couldn't ask him, but they mainly didn't come from him. He was surprisingly, I mean, I had one pre-call. I was mainly talking to, he had like a little fixer. I shouldn't say a little fixer. I mean, he was probably he had a fixer guy that was like wrangling his stuff, who I mainly spoke to, who was a nice guy, but he was pretty easy. He was happy to be asked anything. I mean, I think he's pretty arrogant. He's really media trained. He thinks he can handle whatever. I think the organizers of TED were more concerned about various controversial topics. And then, I mean, the audience, I think like half the audience of these big, TED's very interesting. Like TED, how much do you think a ticket to TED costs? You may know, but
It's got to be free? Like, is that
no. I mean, if
anyone?
you're speaking, it's free, but if you pay
Oh,
to like go, it's 3, 4 days in Vancouver and you watch all these talks and you have free food and drink and get all these goodies. How much do you think that costs?
Makes it like thousands of dollars.
yeah, something like that.
$12,000, right? So it's full. The room is full of the kind of people that would spend $12,000 to go to a 3-day conference and schmooze with each other. So A lot of those people really like Bill Ackman. But then TED is also a non-profit with a bunch of kind of young innovators and sort of a groovy profile. And a lot of people that work there are kind of progressive. And so a lot of those people are less keen on Bill Ackman. And so there was an interesting dynamic in the room. Let's put it that way.
Wow. Oh, that's so interesting. And I guess I'm thinking of you're talking about, companies trying to be progressive or trying to make a different statement, but then everyone's doing their job within the company and that becomes a
Exactly.
warring. It sounds like that maybe was a really good example.
Yeah,
Something like
exactly. Exactly. But a lot of it was sort of Bill Ackman had been on a rampage against Harvard after October the 7th and caused a lot of controversy. There was a whole thing about his wife and plagiarism. There was a bunch of stuff with the media. Like he's always ranting on Twitter. So there was a lot of kind of noise around him, and that was all difficult to navigate, but not, in fact, from Bill Ackman himself, who was totally fine being asked anything.
that. Oh, interesting. Cool.
Would you work with Ted again?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fun, like, I think if you're doing one, I didn't do a TED talk, obviously. I mean, I think if you are, you get coached really well. Like, they're really nice to work with, all their media people are nice. Like, it's a fun place to work. I don't know why they would, like, particularly have me back. I mean, I could try and write a hit book, I guess. But yeah, it was very, very, I mean, from the kind of people watching perspective, it was an extremely interesting experience, and I would definitely go back if anyone asked me. Yes.
I'm curious about finding humor in business. Is there anything that you find funny? Is there like that you've
Yeah.
observed with years?
Everything. I mean, I find everything about it hilarious. I think if you imagine you're watching like a pack of baboons, like it all makes a lot more sense. I think the jargon's kind of hilarious. I think the way people frame things is hilarious. I think you got to laugh or you'd cry. Like I think, you've got to humor's a great thing for seeing sides of things that you wouldn't otherwise see, right? So I think it's good to find humor in any situation, but there's plenty in business. Absolutely.
How do you do the right thing as an individual, like as a consumer, when it comes to interacting with businesses? Should we be buying from Amazon as New Yorkers? It's so easy to do, but what do you think?
Um, Well, so it's a really hard question. I teach a whole class about this. Like, I think there's this sort of fantasy in the sustainable business world that consumers are going to Whole Foods and being like, well, I'm going to pick this coffee because it's a better thing. And I think we're like tired and we've got other things to do and there's all these issues and what do these labels mean? And I think it's a kind of complicated question. I think you've got to find out what the issues are you care about and do a little research. Generally, I'm anti-Amazon, not least because I think it's just a terrible job dealing with all these deliveries and working in the warehouse. That said, uh, the reality is CVS and Walgreens have locked everything down. So if you want to buy some toothpaste, you have to go and stand there for 15 minutes and ring the bell. And they're like, customer service needed in the shave needs department. And then there's some depressed person shuffles over, and I don't have time for that shit either. So yeah, I'm ordering on Amazon because CVS has locked up all its products.
I've had that exact experience
Right?
hundreds of times. Absolutely.
Right. So we've got to be realistic here.
Yeah. Okay.
I listened to some online lectures, and they talked about elites in society, and within AI and finance, they mentioned how whenever there's a lot of elites in society, especially from competing sections, that can cause a civil war. Are you at all familiar with that sort of
Yes.
discussion and between finance and AI?
Well, though this is an argument, there's a historian called Peter Turchin who studies how civilization rise and fall, and that kind of thing. And so he says that societies fall apart when you have a combination of elite overproduction and popular immiseration. So elite overproduction is basically there's too many elites chasing too few jobs. So there's too many law graduates and there aren't enough fancy legal jobs. There's too many people wanting to work in advertising or consulting, and there's a million people trying to get into these schools. And so there's too many people chasing too few opportunities. And if you have that, you tend to get a lot of social disruption, because you have a lot of bored, educated people who are pissed off that they can't make a living, and those people this is how the French Revolution happened, for example. So that's one problem. And if it is combined with rising inequality and the poor getting poorer, like you need the bulk of people also to be very upset. That is like a cocktail for either civil war or a lot of social disruption or things falling apart. And Peter Turchin has been predicting America's going to be about there by about now for a long time. Sorry, I'm laughing as well because, as we were saying, you need to find humor in everything. So we're kind of there. I think I probably don't need to labor that point.
Sure. So we're in finance and AI. Do you think?
Well, that's about the concentration of wealth, right? So you've also got, so there's a measure of wealth called the Gini coefficient. And so if the Gini coefficient's one person owns everything in a country. And if it's 0, there's equal distribution. And the Gini coefficient of wealth in the US right now is worse than just before the French Revolution.
Wow. Ooh. Civil War incoming.
Any advice on what we can do? Is it just we just sit back and enjoy the show of it all, or like?
I think, yeah. I think a career in things that are very human forward is the way I would probably go. Like, I think comedy, for example, would be a good area. I think anything that's about relational and social and human things and physical things is what I would be thinking about if I was starting my career right now.
And I'm curious, do you have any notes on Charlie's Gremlin impression that he said he was doing with you during improv?
Well, Charlie was always wanting, I would say, had a leaning, not always, had a leaning to go in a kind of monster animal gremlin, like to be crouched down, like being a different kind of creature, wouldn't necessarily like keen to get out of human form. I would say about Charlie, a tendency of Charlie.
Yeah, I'd say that's fair. I think they said something. I think Ian might have mentioned that it's you act as your real self in the improv.
Yeah, there you go.
That's really what's underneath a golem-like creature. Yeah.
Charlie is interspecies curious or something.
100%. Yeah.
It's funny, that makes me think of, you were talking about human nature and like viewing people more as like baboons as a way to be like, oh, okay, like that's just the groups interacting with each other. There's going to be patterns. There's going to be things.
Absolutely.
Like has your career taught you anything about yourself and what values you want to, put forth in the world as someone who's teaching next generation, maybe of business people?
Yeah, I'm not super institutional. I don't like big, like groupy, controlling. I wouldn't like working, I think, for a huge company, though NYU is a huge company, but I have a lot of freedom. I'm really bad at managing up. Like, I don't like authority. I don't like being told what to do. I think, if I think my boss is an idiot, I'm going to be really struggle to hide it. I have a lot of problems with leadership and like doing what I'm told. So I've ended up in the right place. But yeah, I'm a little better off kind of on my own with things. I like consulting. Like a lot of people don't like that. They find that unsatisfying. I have a short attention span. I like variety. I don't mind that you kind of you're juggling constant things. I like that. I'm easily bored. I'm very curious. So yeah, I think you do learn a lot about yourself going through the world.
Wonderful. Yeah. Oh, cool. That's a lot of self-awareness, I think. It's from just, experiencing things. Cool. Let's see. I guess we're curious about what you would like to be remembered by, versus in your career, and then also just you as a person. What do you hope to leave behind?
God, I mean, I feel like I'm still working on that. Hopefully that I was a good friend and loving and fun and interesting, and didn't do accepted things. And I'd like to have inspired a few people to make different career choices. I would like my, I don't have kids, but I would like my niece. I mean, I really love clothes. I would like my niece to inherit all my clothes. Uh, yeah, I don't know. Still working on it. I guess I don't really realistically expect to be remembered for my books, but maybe someone will still be teaching some chapter of my book and sometime. I don't know. We'll see.
Oh, cool. Your words will live on. That's awesome.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Aliens will read it when they conquer the Earth.
There
They'll
you
go
go.
through it. Yeah.
We'll feed it into some LLM. It'll be fed into an LLM. That's the peak of ambition these days.
We can and our podcast, we can ask the final question. We interview people who are living their lives to the fullest. Alison, how would you like to die?
Huh. I can see an argument for like choosing time and place and having a death party. Like I'm not super worried about my funeral, but I think it would be nice to kind of know. I would rather not know like hugely in advance. Like I think that's, but I think, I wouldn't mind like assisted dying in a beautiful time and place of my choosing where I had a chance to say goodbye to people and reflect a little and not be in pain. Like that would be okay.
That's great.
That party would be awesome. That sounds great.
Right?
Yeah, what a way to go. Absolutely.
Any meal, you were talking about dining, what type of meal would you want?
Well, I would have to have champagne. I would have champagne. Um, God, that is a good question. It would depend a lot on the time of year. If it was summer, I would want to have a perfect tomato. Maybe with just a little salt, a little olive oil, maybe some avocado, like a perfect, how they are in high summer, and a perfect peach, and some
Oh,
perfect bread with perfect butter, like maybe some asparagus. I don't know. I would have stuff like that that's just like delicious and in season in summer.
I'm getting hungry. That sounds amazing.
Amazing cheese. Yeah, I think a buffet of things that were absolutely at their perfect summer peak would be nice.
Yeah, absolutely. And hunting for that would be a really fun experience too, being like, I'm going to go all in, get the perfect peach, the perfect tomato.
Exactly. I mean, if it was the middle of winter, you could have like sticky toffee pudding and, so maybe a beautiful stew of some kind. But the high summer food, I think, would be my dream.
That's great. And we'll let you go for dinner. I know that you're
Thank
getting ready for
you.
that. Thank you so much, Alison. You were great. We really appreciate having you.
Thank you for your awesome questions and a wonderful conversation. You take care. See you soon.
Take care, Alison.
Bye.